Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezily here and I hope you're all well. And you join me today for a discussion on War Thunder Naval. Yes, I know, I'm talking about naval again. I know, it's weird, isn't it? It's almost like I'm a navally, I'm obsessed with naval. So, what I wanted to talk about today was how poor the aiming system in War Thunder is. Now, I'm taking out a tribal class destroyer, and I'm actually taking out HMS Eskimo. Now, of course, it does differ a little bit in Atlantic Fleet. We've actually got the tribal class with the twin gun mounts on the front, twin gun mounts on the back. So we've got 8 120mm, I think it is, guns. But that's not really the main thing I wanted to look at. The main thing I wanted to actually look at was actually how the gunnery works in Atlantic Fleet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move, like so. Now this is a turn-based game, but the main thing I wanted to talk about was just how the gunnery works in this respect. So we've got the gunnery here, we move our guns with this little dial. So this would be our aiming with our mouse, say. This is our looking and we're aiming. The main thing for gunnery with a naval gun is, of course, the elevation of the guns. So getting them at the right elevation. Now, what we can do here, of course, is we can have a look at the ship with our rangefinder, so we can get a rough estimate. We can look at the map to actually work out where our guns are going to point. We can look through binoculars to get our guns directly on target. Now, say this was War Thunder, this is exactly how we would be looking. So, what I would propose is you would look to your ship, of course, like so, hit your rangefinder, like so. After your rangefinder's been hit, you then have to input your elevation yourself. Now, there are a couple of ways you could do that in War Thunder. First of all is using your mouse wheel, and that would just scroll it up and down just to get the right elevation. Now, of course, we can see our elevation just here, so we want to get 13.2. So, 13.2. Another way we could do this would be by actually typing it in using our number pad. Of course, that does remove access to the number pad for a lot of things for the naval forces, but there aren't that many buttons you need to press in naval. Having the number pad where you can actually type in the measurements, it might be a little bit quicker than using a mouse wheel, so it might be a slight advantage, you could say, but it would be more accurate to naval gunnery. The problem in War Thunder Naval at the moment is just how fake the game is. And I mean that it's very arcadey. So we'll fire off our guns and see how well we do. Guns fire away, and we get a few hits on the ship, which is good. Done some damage to the freighter, and that's it. We know our guns are there. Now, the beautiful thing about War Thunder is we have a mini-map, and with that we can actually have it showing where our shells land. So when you're firing your guns, instead of having to rely on... I don't want to scuttle this away. Instead of having to rely on our eyes to work it out, we can actually use a grid reference to work out how well the shots are going. So we'll just move again, straight on, flank ahead, and then, say we're in War Thunder, we'd pop back to our binocular view, and we'd keep on target, we'd have our target locked. Now, of course, because we would all be moving at similar sort of, we'd all be moving, we would then have to look and see where we were going. Now, another thing you could have is the splash damage. Oh, sorry, not splash damage, the actual splash height. So when a shell lands in the water, for instance, so we'll miss on purpose here, and we'll fire away. So the shells go off, and when they land in the water, you can see the big sploosh of water. And what that does is it shows us basically how far away a target is, because you can use the height of the water to then measure the distance, sort of thing. It's you can sort of, so we know that this ship, say, is, I don't know, 20 foot tall. You fire off a shell, and you know it's going to make a splash of 10 foot. Say it makes a splash of 10 foot here, and it's as tall as the ship. You then know that you've got to double your range, basically, because you're firing too short. So we can use that again to sort of get an idea of where our splashdown was sort of landing, get an idea of where our shells were hitting as well with our mini-map. And you could all do this in live time as well. It's not that difficult. You know, you can absolutely get an idea of how the shells were going in a live time by seeing sort of roughly where your shells were landing, how far away you were doing, and having it all on the mini-map for you. And of course the mini-map would have to be zoomed out a bit for this. So if that doesn't work, then just simply have the map option, because you can bring up your map pretty quickly. Again, it's an easy option to have. So again, we can see here that we overshot the mark quite a bit with that last shot. The first shot was pretty spot on. The second shot was pretty bad. So what we need to do now is go back to our boat. We rangefind again, and we can see the elevation has gone down because we're closer. So we're at 7.6. So again, we'd scroll our scroll wheel down, and you can see that it will go down to 7.6. We'll actually go to 7.5. Fire. We'll fire off a full broadside, and 7.5 was too close to us. Again, we can see that there was a problem. We can see the splashdown happened. We can see that we just simply were not sort of close enough, and things were not working there. So, again, we'll go to our binoculars. We'll get our positioning in. And now again, you can add things like positioning in there for, you know, direction. You know, bearings and stuff like that. We don't need too much of that, because that does get very complicated quickly, but simply having the aiming system in there and knowing, you know, that you're sort of getting the wrong shots, your last shots were sort of slightly too close, they weren't perfect, you know, having to readjust your aiming, using your ranging shot to get it in the right spot. You know, all of these things are things that, you know, it's hard to do, but it's also very rewarding. Especially for somebody that, you know, enjoys naval. You know, it's very rewarding to actually get things on target. And having that system in Warhammer will really spice up the naval gameplay. Boom, we get some direct hits on there, managed to set the ship ablaze, a really big explosion as well. And if we look on the ship now, there is a big hole in the hull. And that's going to cause listing. And again, something that Atlantic Fleet does really well, even though it's a very small game. I mean, this game is available on mobile phones. You can play this on mobile. But something it does a lot better is flooding. Flooding, you'll actually get proper flooding on there. You will be able to see what damage is done, but you know, we can see that the ship has got a massive hole underneath the waterline and a secondary hole just sitting on the waterline. You can see it listing. And this is all the stuff that should be happening in naval combat in War Thunder. It shouldn't just be this whole arcade battle system of who can shoot first, and it not needing to do any sort of aiming at all, not needing any skill level to sort of manage to play the game. Naval should be rewarding of skill, but not punishing of somebody that hasn't got the skill. You know, somebody that's not quite a skilled player as yourself. It shouldn't be it should be still rewarding to them, and it should be viable for them to play. You know, it should still be able to be... You should still be able to play it as an experienced player, but also as a new player. You know, it shouldn't be something that punishes new players that much. However, realistic battle should be something that requires skill, requires the knowledge of playing, and rewards people who have actually had that knowledge. So, we will switch back to armor piercing, and once again we'll range find. So 7.7 because we got closer. So we'll switch down 7.7, and again in game you'd be doing this with your mouse wheel or your number pad or whatever, you know, whatever system they implement. You'd be hitting your rangefinder, using your rangefinder for that, firing off your salvo, and then when they hit, you would get that reward, you'd get that instant gratification, you'd know that you've done some serious damage, especially if, you know, you can see a ship listing, you can see the act of flooding. Now, another thing that I want to mention about this game is the fact that it does take a while to sink a boat, and well, it was like that in reality. You know, it wasn't just these instant kills that you seem to get in War Thunder. It was this thing of, you know, barrages of shells needing to be lobbed at the enemy. You know, this constant firing on top of a boat. You know, sometimes it would take a few salvos to knock a ship out, and you would really just have to keep firing and firing and firing to take one out, but eventually it would go down. Now this ship is going to sink because it's listing so much, but we need to make sure we disable it completely. Okay, we'll switch back to HE, and we want to go for the engine section. So we're going to go for this mid-section here. We're going to try and destroy the engine. And of course, if you hit the engine properly, you could actually do that sort of detonation, that one-hit kill per se. But it's not something that's always guaranteed to happen. Now, we know that the last shot was just below the waterline, so we'll go to 7.6, just so hopefully we can hit this section here, and hopefully do some damage to the engine. Shots fire. They looked good. We've set fire to the ship now. Fire is a really big problem on a boat, and fire is very scary for a naval captain. You know, fire is one of those things that's just incredibly scary to see, because it's so dangerous. Now, as you can see, the fire had spread. It's gone to the engine room. The engine has exploded in quite spectacular fashion. The smokestack's gone, and the ship is listing heavily. Now you can see that the waterline is sitting right on the edge of this ship, and it's not going to last much longer. This boat is going down very shortly. But we'll switch back just to finish her off, because this boat needs to be finished off. Before we head back to War Thunder, so we'll finish her off with a little coup de grace of a nice big salvo into her. Now, as you can see, it's sinking, and that boat's about to go down, actually. And yeah, she's sinking. There's no point firing now. She's gone down. This boat is sunk. But that's the thing, is it takes a while for a boat to sink. It's not just this instant thing. You know, the ship could still be firing at this position. As stupid as it sounds, you know, gunners on machine guns could still be firing in this position. They would be fools, but they could still do it. You know, that's the thing, is a boat doesn't just sink instantly, it doesn't just explode. And Gaijin have really missed out on a great feature here. So we'll just head back to War Thunder now. And we're back. So now we're back in War Thunder now. So just looking at the tribal class here, as you can see, we've got the two main guns at the front, and then the single 120 at the back with a 102 at the back too. And I think this is actually it is Eskimo. Yeah, this is HMS Eskimo. So the same ship, which is just what we wanted to do. So the main thing I want to talk about is just the way it goes in realistic battles. So we're just going to do a test sail. We're not going to do an actual game. So we'll jump into a quick test sail, and I'll show you what I mean. And it's simply that, right, so for instance, right now, we've got the destroyer over in the distance there. So what we do is we press X, we get the range, we update our range, update our range, update our range, and it automatically sets our range in there for us. Shoot. We wait. Too far. Reestimate. Fire. And this is it. This is naval gameplay. You can pretty much just hold down the fire button and just keep updating it. And as you see there, we get an ammunition hit straight away and kill the ship instantly. And that's pretty much naval gameplay. You know, you can see how quick that ship's going down now. Now, an ammunition hit would be devastating, but the ship would still probably take a little bit of time to go down. You may lose the front section of the boat. You may lose the bow of the boat. You'd lose these two guns. You'd lose your you'd lose the captain, the steering house, the cabin, the drive quarters and stuff like that. However, the remainder of the ship would still be semi-operational. You'd still have the rear guns, things like that. Your ship would be sinking quite quickly as well, because I imagine there would be quite a big hole in the side. But that's the thing in War Thunder, is as soon as you get a ammunition hit, you're done. Game over, that's it. That ship is done. As soon as you get a hit on, you know, on the ship like that, it's devastating, it's done. And there's no real longevity in naval gunfights. You know, you don't have those epic long gunfights. You don't have to steer to avoid shells. You don't have to sort of worry about it. And as I said, the most damning thing is you don't really have to do anything. All I did work there was press X and hold down my left mouse button. And there's no real skill needed in that. There's no real targeting involved. All I'm doing is just hovering over my target and hoping I hit. You know, and of course you can be a little bit more effective by aiming and getting things directly on target and knowing where to hit the ship. But this is naval combat apparently, and it just does not work correctly at the moment. And this kind of naval combat's great and fine for arcade. However, for realistic battles, it's just not acceptable. Now we've got an LS here, probably a little bit too close to it actually. Our guns won't press low enough. But one other thing I wanted to show was just on this S38 here, for instance. Now, being a demonstration, no doubt I will hit it and the whole thing will blow up. Because that's how demonstrations work, because they never act how you'd like them to. Unfortunately, because this is a torpedo boat, we have got torpedoes on there, so they're most likely to detonate. We fire at the front of the boat. Miss. That's great. Now I have trouble hitting it. That's just perfect, isn't it? Really. Just stop the ship actually. So, splash damage there with our HE shell. Trouble is, of course, because all our shells are in different positions, so it does get a little bit tricky to aim at this close distance. There we go, perfect. So we hit the bow of this boat, and we do damage. But if we hit it again, say, we're going to do the same amount of damage. We're not going to sink this boat by hitting the bow of the boat. You can actually bow tank a destroyer in a PT boat, because you simply... they can't really do anything to you because they can't hit the rear section of your ship. And this is the hit point system I was talking about. Because I can't hit the mid and rear section of this boat, I can't actually sink him. I can keep damaging him and keep taking out the crew, for instance, but I can't actually sink this ship. I can't destroy it by just simply hitting the bow constantly. Now eventually fire will actually destroy this guy, but if it was a player, they would put out the fire. And it takes you 5 to 6 salvos to actually finally kill it. This LS, for instance, I might get lucky here. The LS is pretty much a hull break because it is very small. And that's what should happen on a S-boat or an E-boat as well. It shouldn't survive a main caliber gun hit. It shouldn't survive a 120mm round to the face. It shouldn't survive a 100mm round to the face. But ships do, and smaller ships do, because of this hit point system, as I said. If we just head back to... that's the wrong button, isn't it? If we just head back to the hangar quickly, I'll just show it to you and explain a bit more detail. Is naval combat and War Thunder is all based on hit points. So, if we look at the Fairmile here, and if we go to X-ray view, actually X-ray view. So the ship is made up of 3 sections. So you've got the front, the middle, and the rear. You have to turn all of these black in order to sink it. Now, of course, if you do hit ammunition, or if you do hit, you know, an engine and manage to blow it up or something, which you don't generally do, then of course it's quite easy to kill. However, when a boat is bow tanking, especially say the Fairmile's probably not a great advantage. The dark is not great either, but the dark is quite good in the fact that if we can all the torpedoes, the ammunition's actually in the midship pretty much. So this section here is the front, say, and the only thing you're going to damage is pumps, because whenever you hit with an HE shell, for instance, you're just going to keep damaging this. Now, if you use an AP shell, you might get into the midsection here and do some more damage, but you're not going to hit the rear of the ship. You're just going to continuously keep damaging these 2 sections, and it can mean that you just can't sink a patrol boat. One of the most common boats I have trouble with is actually things like the Jaguar, because it's quite a large boat, but it's still a patrol boat. It's a boat made out of, I believe it's fiberglass from memory. It's sort of fiberglass and aluminium, and it's got a wood deck, as you can see. But it's a relatively large boat, but it's not huge. And as you can see, there's no armor protection on the front, but you can see here that the front section is massive, and all the ammunition and everything's in the middle of the boat, and all the important stuff's at the back in the middle of the boat. So if it bow tanks you, if it comes front on, you can't actually do anything other than sort of take out the main gun. So you might take out the main gun a few times, but then you're probably going to get taken out by torpedoes from it, because it can just keep coming at you, and you can't kill the bastard, because you keep just hitting this section here. You might hit the wheelhouse, you might hit the bridge and turn that black, but that's the only way you can really effectively stop it, but you're still not going to be able to kill it. Now, I've had game sessions where I've had, I think, about 4 salvos into the front of this thing and not killed it. And that's 4 salvos of usually about 120mm shells, so that's around about 58 kilograms of explosives into the front of this boat without taking it out. And that's 58 kilograms each salvo. So 116 kilograms with 2 salvos, and 200, sorry, not 200, Yeah, well, no, with 4 salvos, yeah, 220 something. So over 200 kilograms of explosive mass into the front of one of these things, and all you do is just keep turning a section black. And that's beyond a joke. That is just ridiculous. It shouldn't be. And what I'm really getting at with this video is stop settling for mediocrity. Stop settling for a mediocre game. Start pushing for a game that works. For a game that we want to play. For a game that actually is good. Because if we keep settling for things like that, settling for damage systems that don't work, settling for the fact that torpedoes arm instantly as soon as you let go of them from your plane, start settling for things like 50-kilogram bombs taking out a cruiser, settling for just absolute codswallop like that, the devs are just going to accept it and they're just going to move on. This is meant to be realistic, and I use air quotes here. If they want it to be realistic, then they have to remove the arcadiness from it. Okay, guys, I hope you understand this video and understand my point. It's not from a position of hatred or disgust of the game. I like the game and I enjoy the game and I really want the game to work. I want Naval to work. I love Naval. It's so much fun. But only in an arcade for me. It doesn't make sense in realistic mode. I've played many realistic games and they don't work properly. It's just very frustrating. And this comes from a place of I want this game to succeed, not that I want this game to fail. The reason I say these things is because I want this game to be a good game. I want this game to live on. I want to be able to click in, ship realistic battle, and sort of see massive players, not sort of, small amounts of numbers. We had about 20 there for a change, but usually you're looking at, 20 as a maximum. You're looking at many more than that. Not looking at much more players than that. And long waiting times. And it's just not good enough. We need to stop settling for that will do. We need to start pushing for, no, that's amazing. Alright guys, until next time, this is me, Carl Screwzilla, out. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm here, don't forget I'm here.
But the other thing he just did there is he did light up the rear tyres and get some heat into them. And that's really important. If you can get some heat in those rear tyres, you're just going to get slightly better drive out that restart.
Excellent.
So the pace car is coming in right now.
Excellent pickup, Carl. A little bit of heat gives you that little bit of grip because they cool off while they're just rolling around. So, alright, so pace car's peeling off.
A bit of
And away we go. Oh!
There we go.
Did Leah just run up the back of Smith then?
Yeah, actually Leah just ran up the back of Smith, just ran straight into the back, and and Smith's
just gone down.
Martin is going around. Jason Martin's gone around. Jason Martin has gone around into the back.
And it's
Huge crash.
Massive
Massive.